Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be delving into one of the most sinister and mysterious objects ever associated with the paranormal, the occult, and the concept of spiritualism, the Ouija board. In these realms of the unknown, few objects are as widely recognized and discussed as the Ouija board. Its prevalence and notoriety cannot be overlooked, and while some perceive it as a harmless and entertaining game to be played with friends, others view it as a potentially dangerous tool that can open doorways to malevolent forces. Meanwhile, some simply see it as a wooden board adorned with letters and numbers with nothing special about it. Throughout these next couple of videos, I'm going to do my best to explain the altering views of the Ouija, the board's history, its commercialization, its cultural impact, and much more that manifests this complicated instrument. This episode will mainly focus on the Ouija board's origins, its connection to the spiritualist movement, and its eventual commercialization. To do this, we have to rewind to a time before Ouija existed. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Real quick, did you know that over 80% of you are not subscribed? If you find yourself coming back on the regular and enjoying my videos, why not subscribe? It's a simple way to keep up with my uploads and helps me a lot. Additionally, if you enjoy this video, do me a favor and drop a like, that way I know you all enjoy the videos and what I'm doing here. But now, let's get into the Ouija board, and thank you all for watching. Since the dawn of time, humans have always had this strange obsession with death. We can't help but wonder, what happens to us after we die? Is it the end forever? And we keep asking ourselves if it's possible to communicate with those who have long since passed away. These questions have been haunting us as humans for as long as we can remember. Considering the enduring allure surrounding death, it's not surprising that the Ouija board is far from being an exclusive method of communication with the departed or spiritual beings. In fact, it is relatively new among the array of tools employed for such purposes. So, before delving into the detailed account of how the Ouija board gained its widespread popularity, it is essential to explore the origins and initial influences that ultimately paved the way for the Ouija board's creation. So let's take a step back approximately 2,600 years to the 6th century BC in Greece. It is said that the renowned mathematician philosopher Pythagoras, yes, that Pythagoras, devised a contraption resembling the Ouija board. This specific invention involved a table fitted with wheels upon which Pythagoras and others would rest their hands. The table would then move towards symbols that Pythagoras had carefully inscribed on the floor. Unlike what the Ouija board would become, Pythagoras' creation served as a different purpose as a divination tool. It was designed as a means to establish direct communication with the gods and acquire knowledge of their commands. Now, I must say, it is important to note that the claim regarding Pythagoras' construction of this invention is unverified, and therefore I cannot state with absolute certainty that this event took place. Starting at around 400 AD, a practice known as spirit writing gained popularity within Chinese folk religions. Although the exact origins of spirit writing are challenging to trace, one method called Fuji emerged as a prominent means of spirit communication around 1000 AD. Similar to Pythagoras' creation, Fuji served as a divination tool for establishing communication with gods and spirits. I'm going to do my best to describe the Fuji method, but since I am not entirely familiar with this culture and practice, there might be some inaccuracies. From what I can tell in my research, it seems that two people would hold the longer ends of a forked branch, while a shorter branch was placed in a tray of sand. Both participants would lightly hold the stick, and the shorter branch would trace Chinese characters into the sand, each with a different meaning. Now, Fuji, unlike the unverified nature of Pythagoras' story, the existence and practice of Fuji can be traced as it continues to be observed in present-day China with Taoist and folk shrines. After the eventual popularization of the Ouija, many began referring to Fuji as Chinese Ouija and or Planchette writing. Apart from Fuji, gathering evidence on Ouija-like objects before the mid-19th century and the emergence of the spiritualist movement in the United States is rather challenging. Historical documentation and verifiable information regarding similar devices or practices resembling the Ouija board before that time are rather scarce. Given that information, our next best topic to discuss is the rise of spiritualism and how it affected the people of the mid-90s. Now, before we delve into the topic of spiritualism, I want to make it very clear that I do not consider myself a spiritualist, and my understanding of their beliefs and practices is based more on research rather than personal experience. But like with Fuji, I will do my best to explain spiritualism with the information that I have gathered. With that said, modern-day spiritualism is often believed to have originated in the early months of 1848. However, the roots and influences of this movement can be traced back nearly a century prior. A man named Emanuel Swedenborg, who was an 18th century philosopher, shared that he experienced vivid visions of the spirit world and conversed with those spirits of those who have passed away. According to him, the spirit worlds were much more complex than just the ideas of heaven and hell, and instead had multiple layers. From what he believed was that the spirits were messengers of God and sort of acted like intermediaries between humans and God. Swedenborg made it clear in his writings that intentionally contacting spirits is not advisable. Instead, what you should do is let the spirits come to you. However, as we know now, some spiritualists choose to disregard this instruction. Swedenborg's experiences and writings on this influenced the initial beliefs of the spiritual movement soon to emerge in the United States. So, let's step back again to 1848 in the town of Hydesville, New York, where a woman named Margaret and her sister Kate Fox lived. In March of that year, Kate and Margaret claimed to have connected with a spirit residing in their home by communicating with it through knocking on the walls. The story of these two sisters, who claimed to have had medium abilities, made them famous in Hydesville, and soon their fame spread through the country. Their fame was so high that nearly a year later, in November of 1849, the sisters held a public seance at Corentin Hall in Rochester, New York. Now, this was a paid event, and audience members could come ask questions and receive interpretations of the spirits' answers. Unlike common days with mediums, the purpose of this seance was not to connect with deceased family members, but more to gain information, as the early modern spiritualism movement was based on the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg, which, as we discussed, believed that spirits were messengers from God. Now, the Fox sisters after this were seen as the leaders of the spiritualist movement in the US, and their seances and events led to the emergence of numerous mediums throughout the country. Interestingly, the majority of these mediums were women who believed that spirits wanted the women to have the right to vote and preach about equality. However, this view was not accepted by many Christian faiths, who saw spiritualism as a religion with unholy beliefs. Now, it could be because spiritualism was a religion predominantly run by women, was viewed as satanic by many due to the public speaking of its female members, and their ideas that were seen as a challenge to traditional beliefs. Now, it's understandable why some women may have posed as mediums to promote their beliefs, because they were often silenced by other religious groups who prohibited them from speaking in congregations, and in fact restricted their public speaking without permission. This could also be what happened with the Fox sisters, but their downfall seemed to be caused more by monetary trouble. To provide context, Kate and Margaret had a sister named Leah who was older than them. Now, Leah never confessed to being a medium, but instead took on the role of managing her younger sisters. She controlled their appearances and, more significantly, how their earnings were divided. This became a source of contention among the sisters for some time, and over 30 years later, Margaret and Kate went to New York in October of 1888 to claim a reward of $1,500, which would be equivalent to $48,000 today, to reveal the method they used to create the knockings. In front of a crowd of over 2,000 people, Margaret took the stage, initiated a seance, and demonstrated her ability to create the illusion of a knocking noise by cracking her toe joints under the table. She would then make up her interpretation of the spirit's message, more or less giving her own answers to the question. Now, the two younger sisters did this as an act of defiance against Leah, as they believed she was not fairly sharing the profits. The Fox sisters' confessions of perpetuating hoaxes did not have an impact on the growing spiritualist movement in the United States or in Europe, despite the sisters' popularity and experiences. The Fox sisters were the ones that were most significantly impacted by the situation. Ironically, Leah was the most financially well-off among the sisters, as she received the majority of the earnings from their endeavors and was the only sister to be married. A year later, in 1889, Margaret and Kate tried to retract their earlier confession, but the damage had already been done. Within 5 years of the confession, all three sisters had passed away, and Margaret and Kate reportedly died in extreme poverty. Following their admission of perpetuating a hoax, the Fox sisters paved the way for the belief that many mediums who emerged during that time were likely fabricating their supposed abilities. It was suggested that these mediums either sought monetary gain or aimed to offer social commentary on topics that were otherwise considered taboo or prohibited. Although many people joined the spiritualist movement for the reasons mentioned, not all spiritualists are mediums like the Fox sisters claim to be. The reason I'm saying this is that it's essential to understand that not every spiritualist joined for those more selfish or possible hoax-like reasons. Most spiritualists prefer to communicate either personally or within a small group, with varying intentions for these interactions. As a result, spiritualistic individualism has led to the development of techniques and tools for conducting personal seances and communication without relying on potentially dubious mediums. Now that we've discussed the origins of modern spiritualism with the Fox sisters in the United States, we have to now step back once again to the early 1850s, when European countries became very interested in this emerging religion. Now, to comprehend spiritualism in Europe, it is noteworthy that the American version of spiritualism remained fairly and firmly rooted in the Christian ideology. With that said, it's crucial to note that when spiritualism spread to Europe, it quickly gave birth to its first denomination, Spiritism. To clarify, Spiritism is undoubtedly a subsect of spiritualism. Both movements believe in the existence of spirits in their worlds, but their beliefs about the nature of these spirits differ. As discussed earlier, spiritualists consider spirits to be messengers of God who exist in various realms of heaven and hell. Spiritism is a universal religion developed by Christian ideologists, which views death as a transition period leading to reincarnation as a spirit. After that reincarnation, individuals find themselves in their own chosen and believed version of heaven, hell, or whatever afterlife they believed in. The Spiritist denomination is significant to this story because they developed some of the earliest methods of spiritual communication that didn't require a medium. The first of these methods, known as table turning, is widely recognized as a form of spiritist communication. The origin of the table turning method is believed to be from Europe around 1852 to 1853, although the exact date is unknown. This technique served as an early foundation for what inevitably would become the Ouija board. This method involved a group of 2 or more individuals placing their hands lightly on a table's edge to initiate a seance. One of the participants would then speak the alphabet slowly, and like every letter, they would just say every letter out loud, and if a spirit was present, the table would either tilt or turn to indicate that the correct letter was said. This process would continue until words or sentences were formed or the table turning stopped. Not long after this, American-based spiritualism would adopt the table-turning method as well. Before I started this video, I used to think that the Planchette and Ouija were always used together, but in fact, I was pretty surprised to learn that the Planchette existed for many years before the Ouija. Now, the planchette that was first introduced in the mid 1850s was not the same as the one that comes with the Ouija board today. It had two back legs and a hole at the top where a pencil could be inserted to act as its third leg. Users would then place their hand on the planchette and it would appear to move and write on its own. This was actually the initial method of spiritualism and spiritism that could be conducted independently. The planchette, which means little board or little plank in French, has an unknown origin, adding to its mystery and appeal. But there was a man who changed his last name to Planchette and claimed the device, but it looks like more he did so to take advantage of the growing spiritualist movement as sort of a monetary reach. Now, unlike the table turning method, which went to America quickly after its inception, the planchette took almost 5 years to reach America. However, upon its arrival, many mediums viewed it as a danger to their newly established reign and openly opposed its use to discourage people from utilizing it, since it means people could do spiritual communication without use of a medium. The dial plate, also referred to as a spiritoscope, psychograph, or telegraphic spirit communicator, was a spirit communication tool associated with American spiritualism. It's widely believed to have originated in Pennsylvania in 1855. This device was actually designed as a countermeasure against fraudulent mediums, aiming to make it extremely difficult for those mediums to fabricate messages from spirits. Now, for ease of use, and because I like the name, I'm going to refer to it as a psychograph just because I think that is an absolutely incredible name instead of dial plate. But limited information is available about the psychograph in modern times due to its rarity and exclusive nature during its inception in 1855. The psychograph was a very, very pricey item made pretty much only for the wealthy, which means that many people didn't buy them nor keep them, and also there weren't very many sold. But like with everything else in this video, I will do my best to describe this device, but like the other things that I'm not completely sure about, there may be some inaccuracies or mistakes in my explanation, but I think I got it right. In addition to its aim of countering fraudulent mediums, the psychograph was designed as an evolution of the table turning method. While using this device, a medium would place their hands on a small table equipped with a wooden barrier on one side. On the other side of that barrier, there was a steel wheel containing the entire alphabet, numbers from 0 to 9, and phrases such as yes and no. Occasionally, additional options like don't know, maybe, or even mistake would be included. Furthermore, the psychograph featured an iron bar positioned above the wheel, serving as kind of like a pointer to indicate the chosen letter. During a seance, the medium would initiate the session, posing specific questions. And if there was a spirit present, the table would exhibit rocking, movement, or tilting motions, which caused that wheel to spin. The rotation would continue until the desired letter was indicated by the iron bar. The psychograph, despite its intriguing concept, did not gain popularity, primarily due to its high cost. But nevertheless, it would serve as a significant source of inspiration for the creation of the Ouija board. Believe it or not, the American Civil War has undeniably had a profound impact on the way spirits, the afterlife, and the perceived capabilities and uses of the Ouija board are perceived today. While I will attempt to not go into a comprehensive history lesson on the entire Civil War, certain facts are important to understanding the connections between the Civil War and the Ouija. So, for quick reference, the American Civil War began on April 12, 1861, and ended on May 26, 1865. Its cause stemmed from a disagreement between the Southern states, the Confederacy, and the Northern states, the Union, regarding the idea of slavery in the Western territories of the United States. The war resulted in a significant loss of life, with estimates ranging from 700,000 to over 1 million fatalities. Of these casualties, it is generally believed that around 600,000 were men, many of them young, who died in combat or succumbed to diseases and infections caused by the conflict. Now, I know those numbers are vastly different, but the reason that these variations are so large could be because that the United States had not previously experienced a war this big, and the Confederacy was very, very poor at keeping military records, so it was pretty much impossible to figure out how many people died. It's hard enough to just find who was even in the war and if they actually died during the war. But regardless of the exact number of casualties, it is important to acknowledge that this was a dark time in the history of the United States, marked by the highest number of fatalities ever witnessed by the American people up until that point. Now, during this time in America, it was commonly believed that the most peaceful way to pass away was to die at home, surrounded by your loved ones. Unfortunately, due to the war, many families were robbed of this opportunity to bid farewell to their sons, brothers, fathers, and other loved ones, causing them great sadness. Fortunately, during this time, many families found solace in a relatively new religion that had emerged just a decade prior, which made remarkable assertions about spiritual communication. This religion was, of course, Spiritualism. But if you recall, Spiritualism embraced the belief that the spirits were divine messengers, but it intrigued many more with the notion that these spirits were once human beings who had walked the earth. Many people now believe that they could communicate with their loved ones who died during the war. These thoughts started early on in the war and were so common that some people claimed Abraham and Mary Lincoln held seances in the White House to try and talk to their deceased children who had passed away from illness. The concept of communicating with deceased relatives through spiritualism contradicts the foundation of the religion. However, many mediums and spiritualism followers quickly changed their beliefs to capitalize on the potential business growth. However, mediums often charged high fees for their services, and table-turning seances required a group. The Psychograph was also expensive and required a trained medium. Fortunately, there was an affordable option available, which was the Planchette, which could even be made by hand if needed. Although the Planchette was accessible, it did have its own drawbacks. One of the main issues was that it required a pencil and paper, which could be inconvenient over a long period of time. As a result, individual spiritualists desired a spirit communication device that was affordable, simple, accessible, and convenient. Thus, sometime between the conclusion of the Civil War and 1886, the first talking board was invented. As you remember, the American Civil War ended in May of 1865. Now, it's believed that the first talking board was created between the end of the war and 1886, which is a time gap of 21 years. Now, you may be curious and asking as to why there's such a significant gap in the creation of the board during this time. The easiest answer to this fact is that the first talking boards were handmade, not bought, and that made it virtually impossible to know when the board was first made and who made it. Now, talking boards were known to exist in the year of 1886 due to the widespread spiritualism movement that emerged after the Civil War. Those tragic losses suffered during the war led many to seek communication with their departed loved ones. It is estimated that more than 11 million people were followers of spiritualism during this period, which means that over 18% of the total population of America in 1890, which was around 60 million people, those 18% of people were spiritualists in America. One other important fact is that spiritualists were much more prevalent in the northern states than the southern, especially in the state of Ohio. During the post-war era in Ohio, spiritualism gained popularity and spiritualist camps began popping up throughout the state. In 1886, the journalist from the New York Daily Tribune visited Ohio to investigate these camps. It was at these very camps that the talking board became ingrained in the minds of many people. The journalist reported,
"In Youngstown, Canton, Warren, Tiffin, Mansfield, Akron, Elyria, and a number of other places in Ohio, I heard there was a perfect craze over the new Planchette. Its use and operation have taken the place of card parties. Attempts are made to verify statements that are made about living persons, and in some instances they have succeeded so well as to make the inquirers still more awe-stricken."
These handmade boards captured people's interest with their simplicity and design. By combining the alphabetical format of the Psychograph with the user-friendly nature of the Planchette, they created a straightforward and affordable device for engaging in spiritual communication. Approximately 4 years after that talking board craze in 1886, Charles W. Kennard, a native of Maryland, recognized the potential for profit in this form of communication. In October of 1890, he established the Kennard Novelty Company in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, initially, this factory focused on producing toys and trinkets, and the company sought to diversify its offerings with a distinctive product. This led to the development of their version of the talking board. So, in February of 1891, a man named Ouija Board filed a patent for an invention called the Ouija, which was then assigned to Charles Kennard and William Maupin, who was a co-founder of the company. Although not directly affiliated with the Kennard Novelty Company, Ouija Board was a close friend to all the founders and also served as their lawyer for the patent processes. Now, if you're anything like I used to be, you might have been led to believe that the Ouija board was the original talking board and not the other way around. The Ouija has always been something that I've been curious about since I first heard about it, and it wasn't until the last couple of years I realized that the Ouija is just a name brand in the same way something like Advil is to ibuprofen. However, I believe the reason why many people, including myself, have associated the Ouija board as the default name for the device is that the name Ouija sounds much more fascinating and mysterious compared to the plain term of talking board. Now, the name of Ouija itself has mysterious origins, much like the original talking boards, and there are various stories associated with its name. Two of the most popular and alternatively accepted theories are as follows. According to one account, Charles Kennard, upon creating his initial version of the board, conducted a seance and asked a spirit for a name suggestion. The spirit allegedly chose Ouija and claimed it to be the ancient Egyptian word for good luck, although that claim is actually untrue. In another account, during a seance conducted by Kennard with the board, a spirit suggested the name Ouija and explained that it was the German and French word for yes combined. If this version is indeed the true origin, it would imply that the correct pronunciation should be Ouija rather than Ouija. Regardless of Kennard's specific method to choose the name, it was officially solidified in November of 1891, where, in addition to obtaining a patent for a new and improved talking board, he successfully trademarked the word Ouija. Sources vary regarding the precise release date of the Ouija board, but it is widely believed that the board was first sold either in December of 1891 or January of 1892. Unsurprisingly, considering the widespread popularity of the spiritualist movement across the United States, the Ouija board became an instant success upon its release. Priced at around $1.50 in 1892, which is approximately equivalent to $50 in 2023, the Ouija board allowed individuals to become their own mediums and engage in spiritual communication. This immense popularity and success of sales of the Ouija board enabled the Kennard Novelty Company to expand and establish another manufacturing facility in Maryland. However, the leadership of the company was about to undergo significant changes because in March of 1892, which was very shortly after the release of the Ouija board, Charles Kennard and two of his other co-founders departed from the company. As a result, a man named Washington Bowie, who was another co-founder of the company, assumed the role of CEO of the Kennard Novelty Company. Although Bowie was indeed a co-founder of the company, he took more of a hands-off approach to the company's day-to-day operations, and instead, he appointed a man named William Fuld, as the supervisor of the company. William Fuld was not a co-founder of the company, but was employed as a painter and varnisher in the original factory. However, he did manage to climb his way to the top of the chain, and soon after Bowie and Fuld's takeover, the company was renamed the Ouija Novelty Company, since by this point it was no secret that the Ouija board was their star item. In my opinion, William Fuld is one of the largest reasons the Ouija board is what we think of when we hear the term talking board. Fuld was very well known for his cutthroat business tactics, and was determined to maintain the Ouija board's dominance in the talking board market. With the Ouija Novelty Company more or less under his control, he aimed to eliminate any competitors or imitators, ensuring that the Ouija board remained the go-to choice for spiritual communication. Fuld did this by filing numerous patent infringement claims against anyone who produced anything even slightly resembling the Ouija board. Interestingly, one of Fuld's biggest targets was Charles Kennard, who, if you remember, was the original founder and CEO of the Kennard Novelty Company, who made the Ouija board. But after departing from the company, Kennard, still sensing the monetary allure of spiritualism, founded another novelty company and began producing another talking board named the Volo. Fuld made short, quick work of Kennard and the Volo. In 1898, Washington Bowie decided to step away from the Ouija Novelty Company and handed over the company to William and his brother, Isaac Fuld. Not only did Bowie transfer the company to the Fuld brothers, but he also assigned the patent and trademark of the Ouija to them in a 3-year agreement. However, at some point during those 3 years, a dispute arose between the brothers, leading Isaac to be excluded from the company. So, by 1901, Fuld became the sole owner of the Ouija board and the Ouija Novelty Company. Isaac, unwilling to accept defeat, established his own company and started manufacturing his version of the Ouija board. And in response, William filed a lawsuit against Isaac for infringement and emerged victorious. Despite this setback, Isaac persisted in creating multiple Ouija clones until 1919, when he ultimately withdrew from the talking board market following another legal battle with his brother. By 1920, the Ouija board had become a household name, particularly within spiritualist communities. Additionally, it proved to be an incredibly profitable product, especially during periods of civil unrest and tragic events. In the next video, I plan to delve a little bit deeper into how events like World War I were directly linked to significant spikes in Ouija board sales. Speaking of profits, in 1920, William Fuld boasted that he had amassed over $3 million since taking over the company. Adjusted for inflation to 2023, this would be equivalent to over $45 million. Also, in 1920, there was a significant shift in the public perception of the Ouija board. The Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS, reclassified the Ouija board as a game, categorizing it as a taxable item. William and his lawyers fought these claims, with his attorneys stating,
"We contend that the Ouija board is a form of amateur mediumship and not a game or sport. By means of this board, one is enabled to get in touch with the other side."
Nevertheless, the IRS decision stood, and the Ouija has since been considered a game in a governmental sense and is subject to taxes. William tried to take this case to the U.S. Supreme Court, but his request was denied. In the years following 1920, there were no significant changes to the Ouija board itself. However, the Ouija Board Novelty Company capitalized on the popularity of the board by expanding its product line to include Ouija-themed paraphernalia, like jewelry and such. Everything changed on September. What a month, September. Everything changed on February 24th, 1927, when William Fuld went up to the roof of one of his factories to fix a flagpole. He slipped and fell 3 stories, but surprisingly only suffered a confusion. God, I'm having a stroke today. He only suffered a concussion and a few broken ribs. Unfortunately, one of those ribs pierced his heart on the way to the hospital, and he passed away shortly after at the age of 54. Following William Fuld's death, his daughter Catherine and his son William Jr. assumed control of the company until the late 1930s. At that time, they passed the reins of the company to their younger brother, Herbert Fuld. However, Catherine and William Jr. continued to work for the company, which was later renamed William Fuld Incorporated. Hey everybody, if this looks different, that's on purpose, because this guy right here was kind of an idiot and accidentally deleted the last two parts of this video, so I'm having to re-record them now. But to be honest, I think it might be better because my conclusion for this video kind of sucked, so I went back and revised it. So it was kind of a blessing, but for now, for the rest of this video, you're going to see me like this. Sorry for the wait. That's why this video is taking so long to get out, is because I've had a bunch of recording issues, like I posted on my community tab for this channel, and on my social medias and stuff like that. Yeah, I've had a lot of problems with this video, but I managed to salvage most of it because, in fact, I deleted most of this video by accident. At first, I recorded it in the wrong software, and then I figured out how to I recorded it in the wrong file format to put it into my editing software, but I figured out how to reformat most of it, but during that, my last two sections got deleted. So instead of having to redo the whole video, I only have to do these last two sections, and one of those sections wasn't very good. So kind of a blessing. But yeah, for now, you're going to see this for the rest of the video, and sorry for the wait. So, during the Great Depression, Ouija board sales declined significantly due to the economic disaster. Then, in the late 1930s and early 1940s, the sales of Ouija boards rebounded due to the impact of World War II. After World War II, the sales of Ouija boards fluctuated over the years, and then in 1966, the Fuld family decided to get rid of the board and cut ties with it. And in 1966, that same year, the Fuld family signed all of the Ouija board's assets to Parker Brothers. 2 years later, in 1968, Parker Brothers was purchased by General Mills. General Mills then sold Parker Brothers to Tonka in 1987, which was about 20 years after they bought it. And then finally, in 1991, Hasbro acquired both Parker Brothers and Tonka, and the Ouija board remains the property of Hasbro to this very day. In conclusion, we've begun our deep dive into the Ouija board's history, covering its origins, its involvement in spiritualism, and its eventual commercialization. We explored its early connections to ancient divination practices and the rise of spiritualism, driven by figures like the Fox sisters. The board's commercial success was fueled by individuals such as Charles Kennard and William Fuld. Our discussion of these influences and the board's creation will make it easier to understand the more sinister and mysterious aspects of the Ouija board, to be discussed in the next video. Now, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I typically speak on my thoughts and feelings of our topics in my conclusions of my video. However, seeing as I am splitting this topic into two videos, I will save my thoughts and personal feelings until we've covered the Ouija board fully. For now, however, I do kind of want to just talk about things going on the channel. So if you're just here for Ouija board things, like always, I'm just going to kind of speak kind of personally here at the end. But the main thing I want to talk about is I want to say thank you all so much for the support on all the videos since I've come back. It's been truly insane to see happen. I never expected this to happen. I never expected this to happen when I first started, let alone me taking a 9-month hiatus and then coming back, and then you all just blowing this channel up like crazy. And I know it's only like 160 subscribers at the time that I'm recording this, but that's blowing up to me, considering when I came back I had like 35. So we went up about 130 subs in 4 videos, which absolutely just, it blows my mind how you all have done this, but it blows my mind in the best way possible, I should say. And also, I'm really glad that you all enjoyed the Flatwoods video. I was a bit worried, considering that it was a bit on the shorter side for my deep dive videos, even though my Mothman one was only about 45 minutes. But that was shorter than both the Jersey Devil video I did and the Kelly Hopkinsville video I did. But I'm so glad that you all enjoyed that one, and I absolutely love talking about that topic. And clearly, you all enjoyed it as well. So that meant a lot, and you all made that video my highest viewed even faster than you all made the Kelly Hopkinsville my fastest viewed, and that really blew my mind because I put out the Jersey Devil video when I come back. It gets about 200 views, which was my most viewed video when I came back too. When I came back and I put that Jersey Devil video out, it passed my Mothman video, which was my most viewed video and was the first video on the channel. So then I put the Kelly Hopkinsville video out, and you all get that one up. So you all get that one over 1,000 in like a week, and that just blew my mind. And then I take a couple weeks, I put out the update video, which I know not a lot of people watched. It was mostly just me talking like I'm talking right now. It was just talking about what's going on with the channel and all that. But then after that, I put out the Flatwoods video in preparation for me and my girlfriend going down to Sutton for the Bigfoot Festival. And then you all make that video pass my Kelly Hopkinsville video in 3 days. In 3 days, you all passed a video I was not sure I was ever going to pass. You all did it in 3 days. It's crazy to see. And at the time of me recording this, it's still the most highest viewed video on the channel. It's sitting at about 1,600 views when I checked this morning, which is, that is absolutely insane. And I really can't put into words how thankful I am for all that. But yeah, that's just, it's been absolutely mind-blowing. And then I try to read all of your all's comments. I may not reply to all of them, but I try to at least like them, and I make sure to look at all of them. But yeah, you all leaving comments, you all leaving likes on the videos. I think the Flatwoods video is coming up on about 100 likes. There's 100 plus new subscribers here, so I'm glad you all are here. It's blowing my mind that so many of you all are here, and I really want to do this, and I'm loving doing this. I know this video is taking a bit longer to come out, and I just, talked about it on a couple sections ago, but there was a bunch of problems with me recording this and then editing it. But I got it all fixed in the end. Just these last two sections couldn't be salvaged, but I'm glad I could re-record this part, because in my original conclusion for this video, I didn't talk about any of this. I just kind of spoke those two sentences I put there and then went, bye, see ya. And that's not what I like to do. I think I was just in a hurry that evening that I was recording it by the end. So not too sad that I lost this section in the recording. Sorry about that. But yeah, I really cannot say how thankful I am for all of you all, and I'm so glad that you all enjoy these videos. And I got a lot of nice comments from you all about like the editing and stuff, and that means a lot to me because I'm not the best at editing. I'm still learning. I edit in Adobe Premiere, and I'm still learning it very much so, but I've been having a lot of fun messing around with it and trying to see how I can make my editing better and stuff like that. And I think it's starting to shine a little bit, and I'm hoping it's good in this video. I don't know how much, well, I'm pretty much done editing most of the video as I'm recording this. I will say it's not as highly edited as a lot of my other videos, because with cryptids and stuff, I can always throw up images and stuff like that to talk about, but with like the Ouija board, I can't really throw too many images up. It's kind of hard to find some images. I know I put like the Fox sisters up and stuff like that, but like early versions of the Ouija board, I can't find any pictures of that. And there's not too much that I really feel like needs visual reference in this video, because it's kind of this video especially is just like the history, which I'm sorry if you were expecting all like the mysticism, spiritualist stuff, but I felt, in my opinion, it was necessary to do the history of the board first before we talk about all the weird things. So I wanted to do this first. So this episode might not be as exciting, but I really hope you all enjoy it, because I think personally it's going to be a lot easier for me to split up the historical portion of the Ouija board and then the spiritual version of the Ouija board. And I know as I'm editing this video is probably not going to be super long. The second video, I can't make that promise, because they're speaking of like demons and then the subconscious and stuff like that. I think Aleister Crowley comes up in there at some point, stuff like that. I have started working on the second outline, but it's mostly just my introduction, because as I've had these like technical problems here, I've been working on the outline for the second video in the meantime. But the second video will more than likely be a lot longer than this one, which is another reason I wanted to do this episode first, because I think by the time that I was editing this video before these last two sections I'm recording, it was about a half an hour. The last the final cut of the video was about a half an hour long, and then I have a feeling the second video is going to be at least an hour, because it's got a lot of information, and I felt it very necessary to do this part first. And I know the Jersey Devil video is about an hour and a half long, but that one is a little bit more structured than this one, because especially with like cryptids. And I was talking to I was talking to someone about this. Well, my girlfriend. I was talking to her about this. Is that it's much easier to make videos on cryptids and stuff. And also, I'm glad you all like the cryptid videos. I am going to take a little bit of a break from them, because I don't want to become like a cryptid guy. Even though I like talking about them, I love talking about cryptids. There's a lot more that I want to talk about on this channel, and this is kind of the start of that. So they'll still be here. I talked about this in the Flatwoods video too, is that the cryptids will still be here. But a cryptid is a lot easier to follow in a timeline than something like the Ouija board, because you have like your sighting, like just for the Flatwoods, for example, you have your sighting, you have your investigation, and then all the rest of the video is the legacy, like the pop culture stuff, the legacy, all like that. Something like this, you have like your history, and then you have your players, you have like Charles Kennard, William Fuld, you have the company being made, you got all the things that come before it. All of that stuff needs to kind of be on its own, in my opinion. And then we can start talking about like the weirder parts of the Ouija board, which, trust me, there's plenty of it. There's going to be, like I said, talking of subconscious and stuff, and then the actual demon aspect, and then true crime is probably going to be in the second episode as well. And then the Warrens are probably going to be in there as well. So there's a lot left of this story, but I wouldn't know how to fit it into one entire video with what we have to work with, because in this one it's a bit more grounded. You know, we talk about Pythagoras, we start with Pythagoras, Fuji, Fox sister Spiritualism, Spiritism, and then we talk about Charles Kennard making the Kennard Novelty company, and then William Fuld taking over. It becomes the Ouija talking company. And then we have its history and how it has Hasbro as its manufacturer now. And that's all grounded in reality. And then in the next episode, we can get kind of into that weird metaphysical, spiritual, subconscious layer that's going to make me feel like my brain is leaking out of my ears. But it will be fun, because I love talking about this stuff, and I hope that you all love listening to me talk about it. But with all that said, I should probably finally wrap this video up, and I'm hoping to see you all very soon with this video. For one last time, I will ask you, please, if you enjoyed this video and you're coming back on the regular, go ahead and subscribe. If you like the video, leave a like on the video, share it, do whatever you want, or if you just want to leave a nice comment, you can do that as well. I love reading them. But yeah, I'm glad you all are enjoying the videos. I will hope to see you in the second one very soon, which, by the way, I have no time frame for the second video, but it is coming. It's the next thing, and I'm not going to start another outline. I'm not going to start another project before this one's finished, which was originally the plan. I was going to make a shorter video in between the Flatwoods video and this one, and then a shorter one between episode 1 of this and then episode 2 of this. But I'm going to find that far too confusing, and I don't really want to split them up that way. So I will sacrifice these videos taking a little bit longer to come out over not staying on track with what I'm working on. So with all that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, all that nonsense, buzzwords. But for now, I hope to see you all very soon, and thank you all for watching.